Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Ignace here, and today I'm bringing you all another Market Watch episode, but specifically in this one, we're going to be talking a bit about the chase cards from Ignice Assault. So with the sneak peek happening this weekend, I know for sure, one of the big things that's on everyone's mind is where the prices of these cards are going to be at. What should I be willing to pay for the chase cards of the new set? Obviously, early on in a set's release, especially with like pre-sales and whatnot, the prices of these cards are almost always inflated, right? We see some crazy high prices, like people asking $30 to $40 for a card that should really realistically be like $4 to $5. Rather than paying those hyped up prices, it makes a lot more sense to try and analyze where the prices are going to be at when the set does release officially, as well as where the prices are going to be when the prices do finally settle down, to get kind of an idea of what we should be paying for these cards now. Now I'm actually going to take this one step further in this video, and we're going to be comparing each of the secret rares in this set to secret rares from previous sets that are sort of comparable, so that we can try to use those cards to help us determine an appropriate price range and predict where the cards are going to go. So guys, if you like this sort of video, please let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me, as well as maybe telling me in the comments section below what you guys think about the prices of the cards from Ignice Assault. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first secret rare from Ignice Assault that we're going to look at here is Gizmet Kaku, the Supreme Shining Sky Stag. So if you're looking for what these cards do really in depth, check out part 1 of Tombox's full set analysis, where he goes into really breaking down each of the cards' effects. But for now, we're just going to briefly talk about each of the cards. So the new Gizmet card, if we didn't get the Master Rule change announced for April, this card was going to be like the best card in the set. However, with the new Master Rule changes announced, it's not going to be as strong, as players don't need to summon that monster into the extra monster zone anymore unless they're playing like a dedicated Link strategy. Now that being said, Link monsters are still going to be strong, they're still going to be played, but they won't be the dominant force that we've seen the last couple of years. Now this card is still going to be good, and it will be a really good card for the next couple of months, but after that it does fall off quite a bit. Now that being said, I do think that we are going to see this card as one of the most expensive cards in the set when the set is released, probably around $60 to $70. Now given that the card is really strong for the first while, I don't see it being much lower than that. However, I think that people are ultimately going to be hesitant to pick it up at all, and that the price is definitely going to drop to around $40 to $50 come April, when it's like a really strong card, but it's not the staple that it was going to be had the Master Rule not changed, right? Now, as for its price comparison, I think of it as being Phantasme's price, because they're both kind of in the same boat. Really strong now, but kind of fall off in April, right? On the low end, I could see it being around where No Material was for the longest time, like around a $20 card, if it's an option, but not really that great. Though I think that this card is too strong, and it's going to be too good for the next couple of months for it to fall off now. Now, on the low end, I could see it being around where No Material was. Like, it was like a $20 card for the longest time. If you look at Gizmet Kaku as an option, but not really like a great option, though I think that this card is too strong, and it's going to be too useful for the next couple of months for it to go that low within the next year. If you're playing at a YCS or something like that, then I think you kind of have to play this card because it's just that good over the next little while. But if not, I definitely recommend holding off, at least not paying full price on it, right? Maybe pay the $40 to $50 that I think it is eventually going to settle at, because it is absolutely going to fall off in terms of play and as well as price in the next few months. Now, if you do pull this at your sneak peek, congrats, same thing. I'd be trying to move it for as much value now as you can, rather than try to hold it and hope that it goes up. Okay, next up we have a couple of Ad Ignister cards. So unfortunately for you guys who want to play Ad Ignister, they got the same treatment as Unchained, so they have 3 cards from the archetype that are secret rares. Now admittedly, the 2 monsters here are 2 of the best cards from the archetype, right? One of them being a Stratos for Ad Ignister monsters, and the other one searching for spells and traps. The big problem here, in my opinion, I don't think that the archetype is going to be very good at all. I understand that Thomas doesn't think it's going to be very good at all. I haven't really seen any promising results from the OCG or anything. So unless maybe like something really big changes with another ban list, or the archetype gets really broken support in the future, I don't think that these cards are going to be too high in terms of price, but I do think that you're going to have to wait a bit for it to settle down. So I think that Marincess Blue Tang is like the perfect comparison for both of these cards, right? Because in both cases, we're kind of looking at the same card. we're looking at really strong cards for potentially really good archetypes. So I think that between $20 to $25 is a realistic price for each of these cards at the set release. However, I do think that without any more support, the archetype is ultimately going to flop. We're not going to see this deck topping regionals or YCSs, maybe topping locals occasionally. Who really cares about that? And we are going to see these prices tank and settle between maybe 5's too low, but maybe like $8 to $10. If the archetype is really, really bad though, it could go the same way that a card like Unchained Soul of Disaster is and be a secret rare that's under $5, but realistically, I don't see them moving out of the $5 to $10 range anytime soon, just because there is that little bit of potential for the Ignace archetype to get support within the next couple of sets. Next up, we have the field spell Ignace A Island. So once again, we have a really good field spell for another new archetype. This time it's a field spell that basically gets you a free special summon at least once a turn, maybe even more. So this card is a lot like the other two at Ignace cards, right? Really good support for the deck that it's in, but the deck's potential just still isn't there. I think that this card is actually even more important after the next set, after Eternity Code, because in that set there's an AI spell that lets you shuffle back an extra copy of the field spell from your hand while you control the field spell on the field, and then you get to draw 3. So it's a +1, but I don't know how good that card is actually going to be or if it's even going to be played. Okay, so in terms of price, very similar to the other two at Ignace cards because they are among the more important cards in the deck. I do think that $20 to $25 is a very realistic price point for when the set drops, and then settling at $8 to $10, maybe $10 to $12, and maybe even as high as $15 is where I can see it settling at. I do see it jumping a bit higher than the other couple of cards just because of how important it is in the deck, as well as the fact that it has a direct interaction with a card in a future set. I would definitely compare this card to something like Unchained Soul of Rage, or maybe Marincess Blue Tang like we did with the previous cards, really key secret rare cards for their respective archetypes. Although to be honest, now that I think about it, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw at least one of the cards for the Ignace archetype short printed. Remember that in that Konami announcement with all of the product changes, they're not getting rid of the short printed cards in core sets until Eternity Code, so there's a very good chance that it could be a lot like Abomination's Prison, where one of the cards from the archetype is short printed, and therefore as a result it would be a bit higher than the others in terms of price. Okay, next up is the big one, which I think is definitely now the best card in the set. We have Lightning Storm, which is literally like a Raigeki / Harpy's Feather Duster as long as you control no face-up cards, which is insane. I think that this card is one of the most highly anticipated cards in the set and is going to be a huge game changer. I would argue that at the very least, it's a staple at 3 in the side deck. If you guys play GOAT format, right, you guys know how impactful that one single copy of Heavy Storm is. Like most players when they're playing GOATs, they're only going to set like 1, maybe 2 back row at a time, because you have to respect the existence of Heavy Storm. And I think that this card is single-handedly going to change the way that we do play Yu-Gi-Oh, right? The fact that your opponent can draw this card and wipe out your entire back row if you don't have any protection is game-changing. Now, because it's such a powerful card, I do think that it's going to be really, really high on release. Probably around $80, but maybe even as high as like $100. Now, realistically, I don't see this card dropping below $70 for a very long time. The card is just that strong. However, I do think that there's a very slight chance that we could see it follow a very similar trend to cards like Evenly Matched and Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So both of these cards, they were pretty high on release, and then they declined in value after just because they like weren't good enough, right? They dropped to like $40, $50 or whatever, and then they spiked back up to 70. Now that being said, it wouldn't surprise me to see this card drop as low as like 50 to 60 before spiking back up. If we do see the card drop that low, that's when I would absolutely recommend picking this card up, because I think it is a game changer, and I think that if you're going to be playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to be playing 3 copies of this card. I have heard people talk about how this card is like a bad top deck, or you don't want to see it when you're going first, things like that. But I think you can say very similar things about like Evenly Matched. You can say similar things about a lot of hand traps, how they're bad top decks in the right situations. And I'm sure we've all been on the receiving end of a card like Evenly Matched still and lost the game because of it. So yeah, Lightning Storm, definitely the card that I would be keeping my eye on, and it's definitely the card that you should be prioritizing picking up when the set drops. Okay, so next up is sales pitch. So Tombox and I actually have very contrasting opinions on this card. Tombox talked about how the card is really good and one of the best cards in the set. I think he said top 3. Now, to be honest, I don't think personally that this card is actually going to see very much play. I don't think it's very good, and it's not really going to be worth very much as a result. So I do understand the card. I understand what people are saying. The card can theoretically search for any card in your deck. However, it does have a very specific activation requirement that isn't going to be met in every matchup, so there's potential for it to be dead. Also, you do have to wait a turn, which means that even if you're going first on turn 0, you can't use that card that you're searching until turn 2, and that's dependent on your opponent searching. You do also have to survive your opponent's turn, and because you opened with only 5 cards, and one of them is sales pitch, you have to hope that you can survive or combo off using those other 4 cards that you did get to play with, and assuming that you haven't died, your opponent hasn't set up an unbreakable board or hasn't killed you or anything like that. I feel like this card is a lot like Witch's Strike, where at first you read this card and you're like, oh my god, this card is broken, but then in practice, it's not really that amazing or anything. So I do think that the card is going to have a fair bit of hype at first, probably around $20 to $25, maybe even as high as $30. However, I don't think the card is really going to pan out. At best, I see it being worth $10 to $12, kind of where a card like Get Out is currently sitting at, a card that has a lot of potential, but isn't really seeing much play. At the low end, it falls down under the $5 mark that we currently see Witch's Strike at if it sees absolutely no meta play, a card that is amazing in theory, but really impractical to take advantage of. Alright guys, last up we have not one, we have 2 Plunder Patrol Secret Rares, the new TCG exclusive archetype here, with 2 extra deck monsters. The Ignace is Plunder Patrol Ship Mork, and the Synchro is Plunder Patrol Ship Bran. So if you haven't heard about the Plunder Patrol archetype or seen what it does, go check them out. They're really cool. Probably not enough to make a full deck quite yet. Definitely though an archetype that has a lot of potential, especially after we do get a second wave of support in Eternity Code. Basically, each of these has a quick effect if they're equipped with a Plunder Patrol monster, where you can discard a Plunder Patrol card, banish a card on the field, and then search for a card as well. So the Synchro lets you banish a spell or trap, then search for a monster. The Ignace lets you banish a monster and then search for a spell or trap. Now, I was reading over the Plunder Patrol archetype and oh my god, it is actually amazing. These cards are ridiculously broken in my opinion, and I think that they are going to be one of the top tier decks moving forward, and I think that a lot of the community would generally agree and is pretty hyped up about these cards as well. However, I am going to recommend holding off on grabbing these cards early and waiting, because I do actually think that they will inevitably drop in price over the next couple of months. So to illustrate this point, we're gonna look at a couple of secret rares from TCG exclusive archetype debuts. We're gonna look at Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, and the Hidden City. So on the set release, each of these cards were actually around the same price, around $40 at sneak peek and then $20 to $25 at set release. However, there's a really big difference between the two. So with Dante, Burning Abyss took off right away. Literally at the first regional weekend, we saw Satellar Knight's top, we saw Shadol's top, and the only other deck that really did well was Burning Abyss. And as a result, we saw Dante skyrocket in price to like $70, $75. But on the other hand, we have the Hidden City, a secret rare for an archetype that we had to wait a very long time for before we did get any good support. In fact, most of the subsequent waves of Subterror support were actually pretty bad. It wasn't until we got Guru, which was actually an OCG card, that we actually saw Subterror really do anything. As a result, we saw the price of the Hidden City drop from $20 down to $15, down to $10, and then down to like as low as $5 at its lowest point. What I'm saying here is that I definitely think that the market is going to treat these cards a lot like the Hidden City, and that these cards are slowly going to drop in price until we get closer to the next wave of support in Eternity Code, just because the deck isn't going to be amazing right off the bat. I think that we're going to see these cards drop to around $20 and then to $15, maybe even as low as $10, because I believe that just with the current wave of support, the deck just isn't that strong. However, given the potential that the deck has shown, the cards will almost definitely trend upwards after a couple of months. But what I would do first, allow the market to drag the prices down as the quantity available goes up, and then snag them before they inevitably go up in price. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. I wish you all the best of luck this weekend at your sneak peeks. Hopefully each of you pulls like a playset of prismatic lightning storms or something. I actually feel kind of bad for those of you who play max rarity. Trying to get 3 prismatic lightning storms, good luck. I don't think even max rarity players would want to afford that. If I had them, I wouldn't be playing them at all. Definitely not like a main deck card. I play like a prismatic Appaloosa, but I don't want people shuffling my deck with prismatics in it. But oh well. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's discussion, please let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me, and let me know in the comment section down below what cards you guys are most looking forward to in Ignition Assault at your sneaks this weekend. Do you agree with the price points that I provided, or do you disagree? Let me know why down below. And as always guys, make sure that you are subscribed so that you can see all of the latest stuff from Tombox and myself as soon as it drops. And yeah, thanks for watching guys. We will see you in the next one. Peace.